I wanted to congratulate Robert on winning Rookie of the Year. This guy is one to watch, y'all. Also, our 2022 off-season is almost over, so if you like the show, be sure to subscribe so you can catch the in-season episodes when they drop after our break. Thank you so much for listening.
Definitely my mental game got in the way. I had the lead going in, and I think I exited losing by like 4 or 5. He was making everything. He was making all his shots where he was doing everything right, and it was honestly a lot of fun to watch. I just wish I wasn't trying to battle him at that moment.
Welcome to Basket Case, the podcast where disc golfers tell you the stories of when their mental game had the power to make or break their rounds. Let's gain some experience, work on our brains, and hit some chains. This week features Robert Burridge. At Amateur Worlds in 2021, he toppled from the top spot, ultimately taking second. Hear stories from his rookie season, like taking a snowman, and his strategies for shaking it off and staying in the moment. Hi, Robert. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear your stories. Tell people a little bit about yourself so they can know what your background is, where are you from, how long you've been playing disc golf.
I'm from Houston, Texas. I've played ultimate frisbee for a long time. At least I learned from my parents when I was very young. I've been playing disc golf 6 years, at least tournament-wise, really seriously only 3 or 4. I'm happy with how things are going right now and hoping to be better in the future.
You've had a really good rookie season, and you placed second at Am Worlds last year. You played Elite Series events all this season and did really well. You cashed at 3 and got second at 1. So how was it being your first season on tour?
It was difficult because I'm around these people that I've been seeing on video. Like I saw Paul, I saw Ricky, Eagle, Simon, especially at Des Moines, Simon. And it was a few times being like, wow, I really am playing with these people. And it's so much fun to get to play against them and to know that at some level I can compete with them, which is so cool.
Absolutely. It's really cool. It's one thing if you start the first round on a card with cool people, but when you get to play with them like in the later rounds, it's like, oh, I earned this spot.
Sometimes it is, and it's experience, I think, playing with those people that really makes it so much better because you become, better friends and you become more relaxed around them, and that allows you to play better. That's something that I've learned as the season goes on is no matter who you're on a card with, we're in disc golf. Everyone here is pretty much nice. Enjoy it because who knows how long you'll be able to do it.
Let's talk about some of your struggles that you've had. What are you a basket case about lately?
The biggest mental struggle for me was at M World last year, definitely. M World, it was just so well run. It was like being treated as sort of the next generation of pros. And it was cool, especially being sort of near the top, being there and seeing the professionalism that's still at that M level was really, really cool to see. And I would advise anyone who has the chance to go to it.
I would as well. It was such a cool experience. Like you said, it's just kind of a more elevated tournament. They have like the field events like they do at, Pro Worlds. You just feel like a pro. And I think that it was really fun. My disc golf community in Utah, especially the women's field, is pretty, like, I'm down in southern Utah in like a very remote area all by myself. So I don't get to play with a lot of other women. So that was something too. It was just amazing to see how many women were actually playing and so talented. So you go to Am Worlds. Were you expecting anything out of it? Did you think that you could place well?
It's pretty similar to this year. Paul Kranz and Ilkin Graw, I think is how you say his last name, went to a playoff at the United States Amateur Championships at in Michigan, and then Paul ended up winning Am Worlds later in the year. The difference for me was I won the U.S. AMs in Michigan that year, and so I was going into it being the highest rated player, knowing that I could win, and I definitely put a little too much expectations on myself, and that's something that I'm working on now is knowing that sometimes things just aren't going to work out, but just have to do the best in that moment because you have the shots and they'll be there when they need to be there.
It's so funny how expectations going into it can really help or hinder you. Like some of my best tournaments have been the ones where I didn't feel like I had a chance of winning, really. I mean, I knew I could, but I just didn't put those expectations on myself. Was able to just play my best because I wasn't worried about those. And sometimes you can just crush under the weight of those expectations.
I think setting reasonable expectations is
Yeah.
different than setting like high goals necessarily. You know, it's not uncommon to have a bad day.
Right.
And
Even
so,
the best pros have bad days. You'll have
mhm,
tournaments where someone who's normally top of the top isn't even on there anywhere. Like it just
mhm.
happens.
Yeah, and with that, someone who's not usually near the top can also shoot well. And we saw that with, Jake Mon being on lead card at USDGC.
So you go to Worlds. How did your first few rounds go?
So round one, we were at, I think it was Hiawatha Park, a gorgeous course. I knew I could do well, but I did not do as well as I wanted. So it dropped me down a couple more spots than I hoped for.
Did you start out on lead card?
I was on the feature card since I was the
On the
highest rated
feature?
person.
Yeah, feature card.
Yeah, after round one, I think I was on like middle of the second card, so not bad. And then I shot well enough second round to get back on lead card for that point and the foreseeable future in that tournament. The courses I knew played well for both me and Evan, and so it's going to be interesting to see which of us actually put everything together for like 2 or 3 rounds in a row and kind of pull away. Definitely my mental game got in the way. I had the lead going in and I think I exited losing by like 4 or 5. It was, Evan was on that day. I wasn't shooting badly, but he was making everything. He was making all his shots where he was doing everything right and it was honestly a lot of fun to watch. I just wish I wasn't trying to battle him at that moment.
So what about that final nine? Can you walk us through shot for
Mhm.
shot what was happening?
So I was losing by 4 or 5 going into the final nine. I knew I had to birdie pretty much everything, and I knew I needed Evan to make some mistakes because he was shooting really well. And so I think I birdied the first couple holes, as did Evan, and then I messed up the third hole of the final nine, and Evan like parked it. And so at that point, I was like, we have 6 holes and 6 to go. And so everyone on our card, since it was just the final 4 people, everyone but Evan, who wanted to shoot 9 down, decided to start taking fun routes and doing things we wouldn't do in the actual tournament. So we ended up, throwing some big hyzer lines, throwing big forehands, throwing rollers, throwing some weird shots that we would never do in tournament because it just isn't the play, and like running things from like 100 feet. It was a lot of fun. It was probably the most fun round that I had there, just because it was so relaxed and we had spectators following us. We were just sort of
Oh,
out there to have
cool.
fun and not really care how it ended up because we were all pretty set in what we got.
Right. How that's so interesting. I had no idea that's how it ended. So fun. Did some of the lines work out?
They worked out a bit. So at that point, I was losing to Evan by 6 with 6 holes to go. And I think Evan had just parked like the fourth hole. And I was like, all right. And then I was beating third place by like also 7 strokes ish.
Oh,
So I
wow.
was sort of in a spot where I couldn't go anywhere. And so I was like ace running things. I was throwing big hyzers. And they, I got par on a lot of holes because I was running things I probably shouldn't have been. But it was a lot of fun, and I'm happy to say I'm friends with all those people still. Friends with Evan on
Oh, that's
tour.
so cool.
It was such a cool experience being on the final nine with them. I will definitely have a couple stories for struggles. Um,
Most people do. The struggles are the worst. Part of why I wanted to start this podcast, though, is like
hmm
kind of shine the light on the fact that everybody struggles with these things. Like everybody's
hmm
taken a snowman at one point, everybody's missed putts for reasons they can't explain.
Yeah.
And it's good to hear that other people, and especially very successful disc golfers, have those problems too. And not
hmm
only like have you been through those, but having gone through them, you now have strengths, even if you
hmm
don't really notice it. Like the next time
Yeah.
you're in that situation, you'll take a six at worst, you know.
So I went to USDGC. I think that was my second best finish of the year. I got like 35th, which was fine.
Awesome. That's a huge one too. So,
Yeah, it was my goal was to end under par every round, and I took a snowman on 18 to put me over par. It was what it was, and that's about my mental process at this point whenever something like that happens.
what was going
So,
on?
so to preface, I think my goal for USDGC this year was to stay inbounds and shoot par or below every round, which on that course is not easy to do. Regarding the first part of that, I stayed inbound. I got, I think, ninth in the whole field in OB rate, which was very happy for
Wow.
me.
That's amazing.
And so that was, a big win on my part because the year before, I think I had almost the highest OB rate in the entire tournament. So
Oh my
very happy.
gosh. Mad gross. Good job.
So I think hole 18 on round three, I was two down going in and ended up two up for the round. So
Oh.
on the drive, I threw a little high up the hill, but usually it sits fine. But it took a big bounce off the hillside and got into the OB.
So after that shot, like what was your mental frame at that point?
My mental frame was, try to get around the corner. If you go B, you can still pitch up and down for par and get even for the round. It's fine, which I thought was going to happen, but we'll get to that in a minute. So, second shot, I honestly just shanked something directly into the left side OB.
Oh no.
And I was just sitting there like, it's still an easy up and down. It'll be fine. Not my finest moment. That was definitely my worst shot of the entire tournament. So then I take my line back with the rule. I took it a meter out from the line, perpendicular to the basket, because I wanted to get around the corner. And then I took optional relief about 10 to 15 feet behind my lie from the
Uh-huh.
basket. And so from there, I threw a very ultimate-esque shot through a super beat up P2, one of the old runs on some Annie and let it drift down the hill, hitting the mulch, matching the angle before the basket, having it slide to the basket.
Yeah.
But it hit
Ah.
the rock hit like the rock wall behind the basket on 18, that like is sort of a retaining
Yeah.
wall, and then got up and slow rolled itself to C2 out of bounds down the hill.
Oh my gosh.
And
Okay, so then now what are you thinking?
I'm thinking just do your
That's
best to make the putt, which I didn't
yeah.
do, but
Ah.
and so I
Ah.
tapped in a snowman to end my round and said I only threw one bad shot that entire hole and took an eight. So, it,
Right.
it happens. I can't control
Uh, it's heartbreaking. I think
it. It was
everybody's had a
quite
hole
sad.
like that. You just have to shake off those bad breaks. So was
hmm
since it was hole 18, how did you deal with the aftermath of like ending on that note?
So honestly, I had a pretty good card. So after the round, they were like, you didn't, you only threw one bad shot on that hole. You played it well. It just, after the round, I was quite annoyed for a solid 10 minutes, but I just sort of, I don't know, you have to shake it off because it's not going to do you any good to think about trying to control what you can't.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, the majority of your shots in that hole, you did everything you were quote unquote supposed to do and you
Mhm.
executed it right and just kind of got a bad break and then got another bad break.
Yeah, and that's definitely something going forward. Like throughout the season, I got a few bad breaks. Like going back to Champions Cup at WR Jackson, I got some bad breaks and I got a little bit mad. Taking, being able to look at something like that and say, I can't control this. is
Yeah, right.
is something I've worked on all year, and it's something I'm at a point where I'm pretty happy with where my mental game is right now.
So, speaking of which, I want to talk about some of your strengths that you've learned. What do you think your strengths are with your mental game?
Nowadays, um, definitely not with this earlier in the year, but being able to look at something and saying, I threw the shot I was supposed to and it didn't work out. I had, I think, three holes during my second round that ended up just sort of slow rolling out of bounds at USDGC. And I was like, I threw the shot right. It just didn't.
Yeah, it just randomly hit one rock or one weird
Mhm.
gust of wind that how could you anticipate that it would be there, you know? You did everything that you could control.
I talked to Eric Oakley after one of my rounds, and he was like, I mean, you just can't control the uncontrollable. You control what you can, you throw your shot. And if something weird happens, something weird happens. And that's something that I will keep with me for a long time because it's such an important ability to let go whenever something doesn't go your way.
Absolutely. It's so hard to feel like if I threw a bad shot, it was on me. And I think that's when it becomes a big struggle or when it affects the rest of your round is when you start judging yourself. There's things you can't control and saying that, like, I did my best, I did what I could do for that shot. And then kind of the ownership of the unfavorable outcome isn't on you anymore, you know?
Hmm.
So then you can just step up and throw the next shot how you should.
Part of that is getting to the point where you're confident in all your shots, and that just comes with practice and with
Right.
time. I've thrown a lot of shots this year where I threw it and out of my hand, I was like, that's not good. It was on me because I early released it or I air bounced it or, it came out early just because I wasn't committing to the shot. That comes with practice, being able to trust your lines, being able to trust your discs to do what they're supposed to, throw them how they are meant to be thrown. Throwing a good shot and not getting rewarded can be a lot more mentally taxing than throwing a bad shot and
Right.
getting punished.
Right. Because when you throw a bad one, you know it's going to be bad. You
Mm-hmm.
throw a good one and then you don't get the reward. It's like, how am I supposed to continue to throw good shots if I'm not getting that like positive feedback? We will hear Robert's mental game stories and strategies after a quick word from our Disc Golf Basket Case Pod sponsors. Stay with us. If you're listening to Basket Case, you will likely be getting some new disc golf gear soon. Some of my favorite discs I've owned I found at infinitediscstour.com. They have pictures of every disc, so you can find a disc that has good vibes and know exactly what you're getting. They carry basically every retailer, so that obscure favorite that just went swimming could be replaced after all. You can also sell them your used or new discs that don't work for your game before you throw them in the water, so someone else can. If you're a TD, their payout and sponsorship options can streamline the whole process for you and allow your winners to get what they want. They do player packs and trophies too. Check out what they can do by going to infinitediscstour.com. That's infinitediscstour.com. Wildpack Sports wants to help people get outdoors and thrive through adventure, sport, and mindfulness. If you're looking for more control or stamina in stressful situations, their mindfulness sessions can help you develop habits to use on and off the course. Whether you're staring down a 30-footer for the win or surviving a trip to the grocery store with your kids, a lesson on breathwork, mindfulness, or a cold plunge can give you the tools you need to thrive. Sessions can be in person or virtual, so get started today by going to wildpacksports.com. Wildpack Sports, control the moment, control the outcome. You placed really well this year at the Des Moines Challenge. Do you have any mental game stories from that one?
So I was lucky enough all week to have Stacy Ronsley caddy for me. Um,
Oh,
I don't
cool.
I wasn't happy with the circumstances because she had injured her back a little bit, and so she wasn't able to play.
Oh,
But she did, follow me around, and it was an awesome experience having her there. I mean, you can see it on like throughout the round. Keeping an upbeat attitude can go a long way. During round one and two, I think, especially round one, I early released one of my drives into the NOB area. And so I made the correction on that later on, and just improving every time is, it's all you can do is just keep improving.
do you have any advice that you would give to someone who's maybe struggling with their mental game?
Take your time and know that it's not your
Yeah.
fault, and that things are going to happen on the course, and people do struggle with their mental game even at the top level. I've seen multiple people on my card get very frustrated at a round when it doesn't go their way. And granted, we're playing for maybe a little more than,
High stakes.
yeah, a little more high stakes than, maybe a local C tier, but it's still competing and it's still wanting to do your best. And so for advice, I would say take everything that happens and just try to give yourself opportunities, because
Hmm.
opportunities, I think I heard this in an interview with that like Macbeth had a while ago, where it's opportunities equal success. The more opportunities you give yourself,
Huh.
the better you'll do. And if you don't capitalize, then you know that you gave yourself the chance to, which
Right.
you need to see as a strength, not, man, I had all those chances and didn't get any. It's, I had the chances to do it, so I know what to work on.
If you are in a tournament and something like that happens, do you have any like tips and tricks that you use to kind of right the ship?
Yeah, absolutely. So, taking a couple minutes, breathing when it's not your turn, getting yourself in the moment is such a powerful tool. Usually, if I have a very errant shot, something I learned from my dad was trying to almost reset your head, basically. And so, what I do is like, I take off a hat because I'm always wearing a hat, and literally just like shaking your head for like a second or 2 seconds, and just like getting yourself to refocus in and be like, all right, these shots, you just have to execute them.
Literally shake it off and then put it back on and start fresh.
Exactly. It really is just like shake it off, reset, and keep playing the way you know how to play.
Do you have anything that you do to get in the right mindset for peak performance before you start a round?
Usually I try to get to the course maybe like an hour in advance. Making sure to fully warm up is very important, because if you go into a round not warm, not confident, it shows on the course.
Yeah.
It can be detrimental. I at least listen to music while I'm warming up, not think too much. Like if you're missing putts, just spend a little extra time there. If your throws feel off, spend a little extra time there. Warming up a little bit, and then just sort of sitting and like taking it all in and being like, all right, I have a round soon. Calm down. It'll be fine. Just that, be in the moment and be happy that you have the opportunity to play, and then going into the round knowing that you have every shot, even if you don't execute them, is something
Oh,
that I've tried to keep in mind throughout all my rounds.
yeah, that you know you have every shot, even if you don't execute
Hmm.
it. I feel like that's often where people get tripped up. It's like, why can't I do this? I know I can do this. Yes,
Yeah,
you can.
and I've I've been guilty of doing that as well, especially during some of my Elite Series tour stop rounds, being like, why can't you make this, 25 footer today? Like, what, you haven't made one all tournament? What's going on? If your consistency is off, it's just something to work on in the future.
You mentioned that you listen to music. What kind of music do you listen to? I might start a Spotify playlist for the podcast and include
Yep.
everybody's like favorite songs. Is there like a certain genre that you listen to?
See, I would love to say yes, but my playlist currently has 1,500 songs on it.
Oh my gosh, that's
And
so
not
many.
really. So I just press shuffle, and whatever comes up, comes up. I add them as time goes on. So if I go back and listen to some of the oldest songs on there, I'll have like memories attached to them. And that's usually how it is for me, is that usually I'm playing a song on repeat until I found another few songs, and then play those on repeat. And it just keeps adding on to that playlist. And so usually I just press shuffle. Generally, I try to keep things calm but upbeat, where it's like it's not as necessarily fast paced as some like rap or rock songs, but it's not like a super slow sad song either, where it's that middle where
Yeah.
it's
Okay, you're gonna have to send me a few songs because now I'm super curious. Or are there certain songs that in around you maybe like played on repeat or that like had really helped you during the round?
so I think during Des Moines at least, I listened to one for sure. It was the Renegades by Ex Ambassadors song. And then warming up, I think I used Soul Fight by the Revivalists, which is like 6 minutes long.
Why those songs? What was it about them that was helping?
Renegades, it's a fun song. It's very catchy, easy to sort of like sing along in your head and just sort of not think about the shots, which is kind of what I try to do. And then Soul Fight is just kind of slower and more like getting ready, it seems like, where it's like an early morning song. If you kind of get that, where it kind of warms you up to the day.
Totally.
And so I even listen to that now, just to sort of calm down and just sort of be in the moment.
Ah, I love that so much. I'm definitely going to add those to our Spotify.
And they're good songs.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because some people don't use music to warm up at all,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they do it warming up, but they don't do it in the round. But I think it can be really helpful, especially if you practice that way and if you find those few songs that really speak to you during the round, or maybe like give you what you need in that moment, whether it's like a little bit of pumping up, a little bit of calming
Hmm.
down.
Yeah,
That's great.
I think I've gotten about 10 or 10, 15, maybe even 20 people being like, dude, what was playing in your headphones when you made that putt in Des Moines? I was like, I have no clue.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny.
Something in my
Uh,
playlist, but I'll never find it. So
of 1,500 songs. That's so wild. Well, if I need more songs to round out the Spotify playlist, I know who to go to. You
I'll
can
just
give me.
send you a copy of the playlist. It'll be fine.
Thinking back to some of your like best rounds ever, did they have something in common?
The best rounds ever, I think my putting was on. For all of
Ah,
my good rounds, I could make any
yeah.
putt I stepped up to. For the rounds that I did terribly in, it was when I was questioning my putting. It's very tough on the mental game to miss putts within the circle, for me at least. And
Yeah,
that's
I
why I'm gonna work on
agree.
that a lot.
I think that's a pretty common theme. One, I think we notice it more because if you mess up your drive, there's so much time to
Hmm.
fix it. You might still have two other drives or, at least an upshot and a putt, maybe the putt. And so I feel like
Hmm.
we focus a lot on the putts because it's the last thing that matters. Like you have to make the putt or else everything else, you know,
Hmm.
it's just the pivotal last step. And so it matters a lot. Plus, it seems like it should be the easiest. Like, I just threw however many feet, and now I can't throw it 20 feet, 25 feet, 30
Hmm.
feet. Like, that's stupid.
During my final round at USDGC, where I shot 7 down, I still three putted a hole and took bogey. And I
Oh
was
my
just
gosh.
sitting there like, of course I did.
What kind of putting routines do you have to like help your mental game focus?
First thing I do, mark the disc, get whatever I threw up either out of the way, or if it's a putter, I just sort of pick it up.
Do you mark it even in practice or do you not do that? Yes.
Sometimes I just flip it, but in practice, I either flip it or leave it. I almost never use a mini in practice.
But you are like reaching down physically and
Yeah,
doing that routine and flipping it. Because that's something I don't do that I think would help me because I always feel different in a tournament round than with my practice.
yeah. And I think going off of that, getting a like consistent routine is very useful. For me, it's, reaching down, usually in tournament, it's placing a mini, getting whatever disc out of the way. And then I take a few steps in front of my mini, pick up some grass and check the wind. And then I backpedal to it like a step or two behind my mini and then just sort of step up and line it up. And that gives me all I need. I'm lined up and where I need to be on the mini. I know the wind direction. I know where the basket is. I know how I need to putt it.
Do you have any mantras or self-talk that you tell yourself before you putt?
When I'm having a good round, usually not.
You don't have to tell yourself like, okay, you're gonna make it because you just know
Usually,
you.
if there is anything, I'm usually just like, just trust yourself. If you don't trust yourself, you're not going to make it anyway. Just try to trust
Right.
yourself. Like hole 18 at Des Moines during the final round, when I made the putt, I think
Yeah.
my mental process was like, you making this all around, just trust yourself. It'll go in, and it did. And so just having that confidence, having the trust in yourself is useful and very important. Always line up the shot. Go through your run up at least once, line it up, make sure, do a swing through, make sure you're feeling right, stretch out if you need to before a shot. If you're feeling tight, take a second and breathe, stretch what you need for half a second. Just make sure you're comfortable throwing the shot. And if you're not,
Yeah.
you
Don't
probably
throw it.
shouldn't be throwing it.
I know. I do that. I make that mistake all the time where I'll be like, okay, you have the shot. And it's like, in my mind, I do. It's like, yeah, I've done that shot before, but my body is just not feeling it. And then it's just like, just push through, it'll be fine. And then it's never fine if your body is not on board.
I think there were two holes at USDGC that I played perfectly every round.
Oh,
One
cool.
of them was the Eagle Bowl par four that averaged the easiest on the course. Last year I went for it pretty much every round and I think averaged par. But this year I just sort of played it out left and played it for birdie and got a birdie every time. And just was like, I'm
Nice.
four down on the weekend. Why did I not
Yeah,
do
like
it the
I
first
don't
time?
that's so good. So much growth in your maturity to choose certain shots.
And that comes with experience and knowing yourself and what you are comfortable doing in tournament. A few holes later at USDGC, a lot of people went big and went for the second shot,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I've seen some big numbers on that hole, and so I opted to play it for par every round, and I took par every round and called it a
Right.
day. And I ended the hole, and I was like, I played that exactly how I wanted to every time. And that's
Yeah.
how I would like to play the rest of these holes.
I'm going up to a tournament this weekend up at the fort where they had Worlds last year,
Mm-hmm.
in Utah. And there's a few holes up there that is the strategy. It's really just like you don't have to be a hero. You just have to get par. If I get par on those holes, I'm beating everyone in my field, you know?
Yeah. And I've, especially on a few holes where the consequence of throwing an errant shot can be much higher than the consequence of playing safe.
Right.
And so knowing the risk reward and the probabilities for you, I think is important, not changing based on, oh, a lot of people got, a two on this hole. I
Yeah.
need to be playing it for two, but being able to say, look, I'm more comfortable playing this for three. And if people take a two on it, good for them. They beat me on this hole.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very important, knowing yourself, knowing your capabilities, and being able to accept them is a very big part of growing as a player.
If you want listeners to remember one thing, what would it be?
The one the one take home message I would give is that there's a lot more important things in life than disc golf. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that I heard a few years ago and I didn't really take it to heart. But, even doing it for a job, I'm very thankful for, being able to do it. I'm thankful for my family for supporting me. I'm thankful for friends. I'm
Yeah.
thankful for so many different things. And if I had to stop playing disc golf to keep those things, I would. And I think putting what's important in perspective is very consequential.
I actually had a kind of a sticky meeting this week at my day job at work. And my boss was just like so chill about it. She's like, don't worry. Like, we're not curing cancer. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when you take that out of the equation and focus on what actually does matter to you in your life and just kind of enjoy that you get to play disc golf, you play better.
Admittedly, I don't really think about unless I'm having a bad round, but it helps put things in perspective. It helps put
Yeah.
give me the perspective of like, I'm very thankful for many things. Disc golf is one of them, but there are more important things like health, like family, friends
Yeah.
will probably come first in your life, and that's okay to have.
Well, thanks so much, Robert. I so appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and experiences and expertise. I think it's really going to speak to a lot of people. So thank you.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be able to help out any way I can with growing the sport. Good luck to everyone listening.
If you want to connect with Robert, he's on Instagram at rnburridge, and check out Dry Bags and his new sponsor, Lone Star Discs. Fellow Team LSD! We will drop those links in the show notes. For all y'all who have taken a snowman, which who hasn't, send in your snowman story to discgolfbasketcase@gmail.com and we will read it on the show. As always, if you like Basket Case, please rate, review, and follow the show, especially leaving a review. It helps the podcast get discovered by other people and lets me know what you like about the show. Also, thank you so much for those who have left reviews. You guys are amazing. I am not a mental health professional or a sports psychologist. Opinions expressed by guests on the show are their own and don't necessarily represent my views. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, full send everybody. No guts, no glory. No brains, no chains. Goodbye.